All right, everyone. Welcome to Tiger Talk Thursday. We are on episode 61. And I know I feel like I say we have a special guest in the house every episode, but this story is one that I've been really excited to share with you and interview. But we've got former OHL player Ben Fanelli in the house. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad we could finally make our schedules match, busy schedules. For those of you that are new to the series, this began with a mission and vision to help those suffering in silence across the globe. When we think about athletes and what they go through and the time that they put into their craft, when we leave sport, there can be an identity crisis. There could be, if you leave due to injury, retirement, or some unforeseen circumstances that forces you to hang up the jersey and the struggle that goes along with those athletes after their navigation. Now, Ben has a phenomenal story, and I'm going to let him tell most of it, but he does need a good intro. At 16 years old, Ben Fanelli was chasing his dreams of playing in the NHL when he woke up in a hospital bed to devastating news. Sports, school, and life as he knew it would never be the same. He had suffered 3 brain bleeds, a diagnosis that shattered his world. But Ben's story doesn't end there. In 2009 and 2010, while facing unimaginable challenges, Ben began competing in triathlons and duathlons. He started sharing his journey across schools, arenas, and businesses, raising funds for brain injury research. Despite the odds, he clung to the slim chance of playing hockey again and embraced a fulfilling life beyond the game. Defying all expectations, and I literally have chills as I say this, Ben returned to the ice with the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. He captained his team in his final season, was named CHL's Humanitarian of the Year, and even attended camp with the New York Rangers in the NHL. Unbelievable. In 2011, Ben became intrigued by the growing investment in mental health, noting that the issue continued to worsen despite increased funding and unused resources. He saw a need for proactive, alternative approaches. By 2016, he launched the Heroic Minds podcast, which we're going to hear about, which amassed over 100,000 listens. Amazing. Through conversations with individuals who had lived through heroic experiences, he explored why our world seems increasingly vulnerable and what fosters resilience, courage, and high performance. In 2017, he graduated with a master's in counseling and psychotherapy and began building the Heroic Minds platform, helping clients across North America enhance their emotional and mental well-being, which we will dig into. Now, I know this intro is a little bit longer than normal, but he deserves every word on here. So today in 2024, Ben's mission is clear: to remind the world that everyone has the tools within them to achieve the feelings they desire. His message, rooted in the universal narrative of heroism, transcends cultures and inspires people worldwide. Join us as we delve into the incredible journey of Ben Fanelli, a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of the human spirit, and discover how life after sports can lead to extraordinary paths of heroism and fulfillment. How's that for an intro?
Wow, big shoes now, huge shoes. Well,
Exactly. No, I'm teasing. Honestly, I'm so excited to have you here. One of my friends, Shannon from UNH, sent me your name, and I remember looking up your video and seeing everything going. So let's just go back to that young boy with big dreams and, 16 years old, waking up in a hospital bed.
yeah, it was, I tell the story from what people told me because none of it's really solid memories in my mind. However, we really can fast forward, I think, to the hospital experience just because we've heard the story before. Young individuals, someone tells them or a couple people tell them they could be a professional athlete one day. And so it's the classic story. You push everything else aside, you chase it, your identity becomes, and your sense of self and values are strongly correlated with your outcomes in sports. And so we've heard that. So yeah, fast forwarding to the hospital, it was, sport was completely not even on my mind when I was sitting in the hospital bed with my mom waiting for the final results to see if I'd need brain surgery or not. And a team of nurses at that point started doing beads on my head to map out where they were going to do the surgery. So my mom and I, of course, assumed they'd made their decision. And it was, yeah, the scariest moment of my life for myself and my family. Now, I think I approach, I would say, the performance aspect with a lot of my clients from a bigger picture, philosophical, more phenomenological approach to performance, which is whether that's a niche or right or wrong, that's what I do. And I think that was probably my first experience with opposing the reductionist view of our lives as athletes, where for the first moment in what felt like a very long time, sport wasn't even a value. It had nothing to do with that situation, because that situation was so much bigger, and sport was finally put back into perspective, into that box of where I believe it should be to lead ourselves to the greatest version of ourselves, where we're actually free and we're not clinging to the sport and the outcomes in sport. And so it was that I do remember. And I think the only reason I do remember it is because it lasted beyond the hospital. Like most experiences in the hospital, I have no memory of the injury itself, nothing at all memory wise. Even when I see the video, it doesn't feel like it's me. It's like I'm watching a highlight of someone else. But I think, yeah, the most important experience in the hospital and thereafter for a few months was that separation from the obsession with that journey of getting to the NHL or playing professionally. I would be, lying if I didn't say it drifted a little bit. I think there were other life experiences that helped keep things in perspective after that, but definitely in the hospital, it was like, wow, the need for sport to feel okay and feel confident and feel whole, etc., lifted temporarily, and it was cathartic for sure in a way, but of course many other fears and other things going on at the time. Maybe it was a distraction, who knows, you can call it what you want, but a pretty interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine. I know we dove right into the injury when you, because that's what you see in the media, and it's right there. But who has been before the injury and who has been after the injury? Like, there's so many pieces to your story. Um, did you have much, like, when you think about the identity piece of an athlete, was there this identity piece for you as a player? Like, did that identify you? Did you, I mean, playing in the OHL, you would have a crowd, you would have autograph signing, you would have all the things that go along with the draft and those things. So and then there's been after the injury. How did those compare when you look back?
I could talk about that for 3 hours, so
I'm sure.
I will reduce it down to, I would say, reflecting back now, I don't even know if I was consciously aware of this, but I think a large part of me was playing a bit of a role. And I would say not all of me, I say a part of me, because I think there were a lot of things that I did during my time as an athlete that I still very much do today and embrace, the ability to engage in a community, and I like to believe, live a life of heroism where you do put yourself second, not to make yourself vulnerable or not to commit to yourself, but I think committing to the world around you gets you out of your head, which appears to be the most common articulation of human distress, is that I'm stuck in my head. And when we think about ourselves, it's highly correlated with negative emotion, or what we would define as, some people would define as, negative emotion. So I did a lot of that while I was playing, but I think in regards to always being okay, in regards to saying everything's fine, which even when I speak now, I take the line from The Italian Job, where Charlize Theron's talking to her father, and in the movie at least, and he says, "How are you doing?" And she says, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And this line that I'm about to tell you just hit so hard, and I think hits so close to home, and is just so damn true. And her father responds back and says, "You know what FINE stands for? It stands for freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional." And that's that's the aspect of myself I didn't want to get attention to. Like, I am freaked out. Like, is this going to work? I am, neurotic. Like, my ability to feel negative emotion at the drop of a hat, if one small thing's not going well, like, that was me, potentially insecure. Okay, well, I didn't even think I could participate in conversations of psychology and philosophy because I didn't think I was smart enough. which therefore connected me back to putting more value in hockey and ensuring that this damn thing works out, because if it doesn't, who am I? And then emotional. It's like, I think under the covers, it was emotional, right? Like, what I mean under the covers, you were told, or the assumption is not to show it. So, and I still see it today, and I have to catch myself too, right? I believe we're all works in progress. And so, yeah, I'm quick to say I'm fine. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. And it's like, wait a second,
Yeah.
let's pause there. And you know what, I feel so blessed and lucky, because every single session I have with my clients now today, I learned so much about myself as well. But to come back to your question, I think I was playing a bit of a role to cover up those variables that I just explained. And it was through this kind of fabricated toughness and fabricated cool guy. And that, I think the tough part is that you get feedback that appears to be positive, so you keep it going.
It's
Like, wow, you are
the
tough.
external validation, eh?
Yeah, yeah. And so that feedback loop keeps it going. And then now, you know, fast forward, who am I today? It's like the goals I have and what I want to do. Like my now wife actually, you know, takes pictures of me from the kitchen window because I'm out just looking at the lawn, pulling weeds. Like I could spend the whole day mowing my lawn. Even my parents are like, I cannot believe it. Even though it's in my roots as an Italian, for the other Italian listeners, you can understand. I do not water my driveway though. But it's like, I find so much joy and value in that. You know, I wanted, my goal one day would be to have a pizza shop. I read. I would never read casually in the past. Yeah, like the person I am today, if someone would have told me this is the person I would be when I was 16, I'd be like, that guy sounds unbelievably lame. Like, I want nothing to do with that. Yet here I am, loving every second of it. And you know, I would even say I even have a bit of a different friend group, maybe even, or social connections that I may have in the past. That if I was continued to live that masked version of myself, I think maybe would be involved in different groups. And I am just so blessed and lucky to have the incredibly competent and compassionate people around me that I do today. So again, I could talk about it for 3 hours. I'll
No,
stop
that's
there and
okay.
say I would say a very nerdy version of myself. And I'll say that because there's people a million times smarter than me, but I would say a very nerdy version of who I was, and I love it.
Yeah, of course. Well, you're curious and educated and all the things. Now, I'm sure some people are watching are like, what the heck happened? What accident did he have? Can you bring us back to that day that landed you into the hospital?
For sure. So in the second period of my sixth game in the Ontario Hockey League with the Kitchener Rangers at 16, maybe I already said that. I went behind my net to pick up a puck and then reverse the puck back the other way that it came. And due to a series of unlucky events, I was hit behind my net. And when I was hit against the boards, my head hit the metal stanchion that holds the glass in place. So my helmet had cracked at that point and fell off. And then I fell to the ice, and I don't remember any of this. I'm going off the video, but that's essentially what happened. They took me to the local hospital. They couldn't care for me there. So they took me in a helicopter to Hamilton General Hospital, which is about an hour away, which is there. I was delivered the news once they pulled me out of induced coma of the news that you shared earlier.
Yeah, that must have felt like a dream. Now, I think about the video that I had watched. I think about, I mean, it showed your parents or your mom. I remember your mom specifically, um, when you talk about wanting to go back and play. So here we have this life-threatening injury, and you want to be supportive of your children, of course, but I can only imagine the PTSD around that event for a parent. Um, Talk to us through that journey with your parents, and I'm sure you've talked about it with your family, but what was that experience like, and how did you navigate that with your I vaguely remember your mom. I can just remember how emotional she was, maybe because I'm a mom and it really stuck to me when I was watching the video. You wanting to go back and play, and how did you guys manage that behind closed doors?
Yeah, it was a bit of a bumpy ride. When I reflect back, that was the worst part of the whole thing, right? Like, I didn't remember the injury, so I don't carry that around with me. I think that's the reason also I was able to go back and play without that hanging over my shoulders.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, I mean, it was my mom. My mom's biggest fear came true. She didn't enjoy hockey. She didn't enjoy totally love that I was playing. She would often say, "I really dislike the violence of this game." She called it violence, and so yeah, like her biggest nightmare came true. And reflecting on that even brings up emotions. That's just like terrible that the most important person in my life, like I directly or indirectly put her through that, and then returning to play. It's like the polar opposite of what she ever wanted. How she found a way to support me, I have no idea.
She's
I
your
think,
mom.
right.
She's your
I
mom.
think the other side was, which wasn't great, but a bit of a side note, is that I figured if I was going to get a chance, well, I need to be incredibly strong. And it was ridiculous how much I was training twice a day, wake up in the morning, swim or work out, go to high school, leave high school, go back to the gym again a second time. Like I was probably 20 pounds heavier than I should have been. Like I was 215 and I'm naturally now today around, 195, 200, depending. Like it was just crazy. I was way too heavy for where the game was going, but that's an aside. But I thought and my mom saw that, so I think that helped a little bit. Like, okay,
Yeah.
he's bigger, stronger, etc. He should be safe out there. I'd add a caveat that I think there's a massive skill aspect to safety as well. Not that we need to go down that side of things, but to put things in perspective, yeah, of course, I had an incredible upbringing. I was able to play hockey, which I'm now in understanding finances a little more. A lot of the funding went to my ability to play the sports that I
Yeah.
played, that my parents had. And so we didn't have a cottage or fancy vehicles or anything. However, when I was thinking about returning to play, my mom, this is a true story. And this is me at 17. My mom said, "Ben, if you don't go back to play, I'll buy you a brand new Mercedes Benz." Yeah,
Wow.
like she really didn't want it to happen, obviously. And I didn't take the deal. I maybe as I drive my grandfather's old 2011 pickup truck, I think maybe I should have taken that deal. And then I think the comfort increased a little bit as I got back to playing, and I think there was more security there. I think the telling sign was when I had about 20 games left, and maybe it's a conversation we can get into later. Amazingly powerful conversation with my assistant coach and my head coach at the time, Mike Van Ryn, who's now with the Leafs. It was actually him. I went into his office. I knew he had ended his career a little earlier than he had planned, and I just said, I told all my coaches, but I started with Rhino, and I said, look, there may be some pro opportunity, talking with my advisor, whether American League East Coast kind of thing, like potentially, but I think this is it for me. We had about 15 games left, and that, not to get off topic, maybe we can come back to it, but it was a really powerful conversation. And then I went and told my parents at dinner that night. I said, guys, I know we've been through a lot, but I'm just going to finish out these 15 games. I don't know where the hell I'm going to go or where life's going to go, but I got to start a different journey. I didn't know what that was going to look like at the time at
You just
all.
decided that you were done.
I did, I started to, I think, come back to, I mean, I did have a lot of perspective. My relationship with the game was so different when I came back. It was so much healthier, but there was still a part of me that was clinging a little bit, right? I think I was in an environment where that was a common narrative. So I was clinging a little bit, but yeah, it was just, you do the math. Like I played with individuals that were absolutely world class that never played in the NHL and had 80 to 90 points multiple seasons in a row in what's said to be the best junior hockey league in the world. So I'm doing the math. We had pro guys come back that had played in the NHL, and they all said the same thing. It's all good and well, and like, the fans and the money is great, but my best years in hockey were junior hockey. And so that, coupled against what I'd been through, I'm like, am I rolling the dice? Like, am I doing this? So then I just thought, no, made the decision, and we'll go figure out where life takes me.
Yeah. And I mean, let's talk about where life's taken you. You have the heroic minds, you went and got your degree. What are some of, like, I always think about the athlete or the parent that, or whoever, human, you don't have to be an athlete to be struggling to consume good nuggets from these interviews. Um sorry, my screen just went blank there for a second. What would
There's
your advice be for someone who's watching this and is struggling in silence or going through their own, I think about yours injury. What's really interesting about your scenario is you don't remember the injury. And like you said, I truly agree with you that that was probably to your benefit because you don't have the same fear attached to you because you're not like on the ice. I remember watching your video thinking like, how is he able to go into the corner or go after a puck as hard as he can without that fear of getting in another injury? So, what advice would you have for some athletes that are navigating injuries or contemplating to stay in sport or leave? Obviously, we all have our own experiences, but what do you feel is important for them to assess for themselves before they make a decision?
It's such a fully loaded question, an incredible question. I mean, my mind goes in 10 different directions, because it's so situationally specific. But I think I'll go back to the reductionist approach. I mean, this totally connects to the performance in the game too. Like I know this might be a little off topic, but I want to make a point. Like no one's talking about the fact that a lot of the best athletes in the world, and now I hear stories because I'm lucky enough to work with some incredible individuals chasing the Olympics, in the Olympics, professional hockey, et cetera. Like I'm very blessed and lucky to work with the people that I do. But continually, over and over again, and we see this in the Netflix documentaries, like the ones that really have it figured out appears on the surface that they're obsessed. It appears on the surface that they're just scratching and clawing and it's all about force and effort. And
And
I don't know why that is. Well, I have some ideas, not to get into it now, but it's like it's the common, no one's challenging this. No one's reinforcing that, hey, the 8 players that I played with, and I could go through the list of guys that I played with that were the best, were fooling around before games, were go lucky. They approached it like road hockey. They didn't overthink their pregame meal. They didn't hyper focus. They didn't overanalyze. They didn't do all the imagery stuff. They didn't work on goal setting. They didn't work on manufacturing confidence. Like I'm not saying those are bad practices. It's just that they didn't do that. Their relationship with sport was such that it wasn't forced. It was what I like to call effortless intention. Now, I'll kind of stop there. It was just a really healthy relationship with sport. So, of course, the first part of my answer is that let's renegotiate our relationship with sport beforehand, not only so that it benefits us in the future, but it allows us to be in the place we all know is the best for athletes, which is when we're free and our external world is in harmony with our internal world. We can see the failures. We don't attach ourselves to them. We see the big picture, et cetera, et cetera. Now we can park that there. I think so. That's the first part, is renegotiating my relationship with sport ahead of time,
I like that.
which for me, whether that was caused by the injury or caused by incredible people in my life, I think it was a bit of both that led me to renegotiate earlier on. Now, the other part that I see as I've seen help a lot of clients in session and in their transition out of sport into whatever they're going to do next is, I think the common response is, well, find something else you love, right? Go find something else you love. And I find that to be a bit of a problematic approach. Not that I have all the answers or everything I say is true. I find that a problematic approach because before we find something we love, we have to know what we love and we have to know what we value. So if you're somewhere, technically, let's like to make things relevant, you're in a location you don't want to be in, but you also don't know where to go or where could be better. And someone's like, hey, just get out of here, go somewhere you want to go, like go enjoy yourself.
There's
That's
also a
frustrating.
difference between passions and gifts. Sometimes,
Right.
like I interviewed Donovan Bailey and he laughs. He's like, Janine, I didn't even want to run. Fastest man in the world at the time, and he wanted to play basketball. And some guy kept going after him. It's like, you can love something and it's not going to be the thing that your gift to the world, right? Or what it's going to be. So it's interesting
Yeah,
that you say that.
really. Right. Like that goes back to the relationship with the thing. Like, so do I keep doing this because I've done it for 14 years or because I'm good at it or because this, right? We hear those things all the time, but yeah, so we find ourselves convincing people or convincing these athletes to go find something they love. Come on, go find something you love. Well, that's frustrating when you haven't actually sat back and thought about your values or even had the chance to nurture and develop those values, right?
Yeah.
Identity foreclosure is a real thing. Like you've already been put into what you're going to love and what you're going to be good at by 8 years old. Like
Yeah.
let's first have a conversation about values and what's actually important, and maybe go into some unknown environments to figure out what is important in life. So that's one part. And then I think the other part I've seen a lot of positive outcomes in is actually not looking forward, but instead looking back at what part of me needs to die off. Right?
It's
Like
so
we
funny you
always think,
just said that. I was just thinking, I've heard the saying like athletes die twice
right.
because they die after sport, right? That identity piece. But it's so true that letting parts of you go. I think that's probably the toughest one for us as we navigate the next chapter.
Well, yeah, I think, and I think it should be, right? Like, I think it really should be because of how freeing that can be. So then now we've got a blank canvas and now we're excited. And now what is looked at as this daunting task of finding something I love, it now shifts into a bit of an adventure. And of course, I'm going to bring some heroic philosophy into this. Like, yeah, we let part of us die off to welcome and embrace this new part of us. And it's like, is that not the journey? Like, is that not what we all want? Is like a new, fresh, exciting journey? But I got to get rid of the baggage from the previous journey first, or the parts of me that I don't want to carry with me. And so I think it's actually incredibly freeing when you're no longer navigating life expecting to feel full in the way that you used to, and allowing yourself to feel full by a different set of values.
Mm.
And so that's where I think it
And a different
I think it
relationship with yourself, right? It's a totally different relationship with yourself.
right, right. Yeah, it's so I like going the more personal philosophy route as I have these conversations with clients, and yeah, the values piece, and definitely getting to a point where it's like, let's let part of us die off, knowing we're going to be okay, right? Like I think that's an important one.
So in theory, it's great to hear those concepts, but what's the first step for someone who can actually action something that you're saying? Because I imagine for someone who's maybe never had these types of conversations or is hearing this for the first time, they're like, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know my interpretation, but for someone listening, what would be step one? What would you advise them to do?
Step one is that conversation, that difficult conversation, and getting as deep as we can in that conversation.
And would you say you
Not
did that
even,
with your coach? The one that you said, is that kind of like the
no,
conversation?
that was a little different.
Okay.
It was just very validating, and I can share that after. I think it might be, well, here, I'll just throw it in now. So I went into his office and I said, Rhino, yeah, I'm thinking these are going to be my last 15 games and I'm going to figure out life after. And he said to me, and I think it was important at the time that he had been there, right? There's that he'd made it, he finished earlier than he wanted to. Also, I had an incredible relationship with my coaches, so that helped as well. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Fanels, when you turn 25, you're going to start to realize how much you overvalued this game, and you're going to start to laugh at yourself. And he said, but then what's going to happen is you're going to turn 35 and you're going to have a couple of kids, right? He's like, you thinking of having kids? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to have kids. He said, so when you turn 35 and then you have kids, he said, you are going to laugh your head off at how much value you put on the game. He could not have been more right about that. Not that I have kids yet, but it's like I'm already laughing at that relationship that I had. But it was just so validating from, it's kind of everything I needed to hear. Like for someone that had been there to say, like, dude, I know it seems scary and all this stuff, but I'm telling you, you're going to get to a point where you think this 21-year-old version of you is ridiculous and seeing things wrong. And it was like perfect. I remember leaving him and then my head coach at the time, Troy Smith, very similar conversation, leaving those meetings like 100 pounds lighter. Like it was instant. It was honestly instant. I'm not saying other people's behaviors need to happen instantly or
No,
changes happen instantly, but for
it's,
me,
yeah.
in that experience, it was unbelievably invigorating and freeing for sure.
So have the conversation, whether with people that you trust or coaches or parents, or so getting that off your chest, right? I refer to it as a clearing. I've heard that before, you know, when you're trying to get into something like you, and you do feel lighter when you do share it, and how we navigate that in our own experience. That's different for everyone. You might need 5 conversations. Someone might need 1, someone might need 20 to get to that feeling.
Mhm.
So have the conversation. And what was number 2?
Number 2, I would say a really amazing exercise. When I bring up something that I think is incredible, it's because a lot of times in session, I'll try things and I'll
Yeah.
see where it goes, and I'll admit that to the clients. I'll say, you know what, like, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm going to put this on the table. Like, let's sift through it together. But one of the, I don't want to call it an exercise. It's more of a thought experiment, if you will. And I'll say, I won't ask them why they play. I won't ask them why they play sports or why they do what they do, because we'll get the default answer. It's because I love it, and you know, it's so amazing and all that stuff. But I'll say, you know what, you don't have to do this. And I'll just leave that. I'll leave that there. I'll say, you know, you don't have to play this sport. You don't have to be doing it. And it kind of stops them in their tracks to think deeper than the surface level. It's because I love it. It's because right. And what I find happens, or what I've seen happen, is that freedom starts to, right? It's like, you know what, that's right. I don't have to be doing this. And they start to then reflect on why they truly want to do it. Not because of mom and dad, not because of the agent, not because of the contract, not because they've done it for 10 years and they can't stop now, which is unfortunately a common one. They start to then realize, wait a second, yeah, I don't have to do this, but I'm deciding to be here. So if I am personally deciding to be here anyways, then why don't I use the old F it approach and just make the best of it, and like just do it for me again, like I used to when I was 7 years old. So yeah, I think that maybe if there is a list of things here, I would say that's another one too, is like, you don't have to be doing this. You do not have to do this. And then they can reflect and say, you know what, you're right. I don't have to be doing this. And in fact, I'm tired of dragging myself to the track or dragging myself to the ring. I don't really see this working out anyways, or even some reflections. Like, I've had some very powerful conversations with individuals at the cusp of competing for our country. And they're like, you know what, I think about being there on the podium, and when you create the space for them to actually go down that road, which they're taught to never go down, like considering giving up, that's not allowed. But it can be so freeing, right? It doesn't mean someone's going to quit. It just gives them the ability to find that control again. And so some of these clients will reflect and think, you know what, having that trophy over my head, doing that, I don't know if that checks my box anymore. Like, I don't know if that's what I want to be doing. So that could be number 2, is simply, you don't have to be doing this. And here's a safe space to actually at least consider it, because I didn't feel I was able to consider that. Like,
For sure. And
yeah,
we
so
cling, our confidence comes from the ability to understand the role that we play it. Like you talk about the story and how you know, it wasn't just you, but you were reliving this role. I can relate to that wholeheartedly, as I mean, the essence of Janine has carried through all my experiences in life, but I have definitely played many roles, thinking that when I was in that role, that was the only role. Meanwhile, when we read a story, we understand that there are many roles that we play. And now, as a mom, someone in the workforce, someone who does speaking and different things and activities, you know, I find the hardest as an athlete is, for me, maybe it's a female thing, but the physical changes. Now we can, because I'm such a all or nothing. I was always an all or nothing. Did you ever experience that? Or again, you had like you said, I know you did the training where you're 215. So definitely there was a difference in your training there. But I find the body one and the figuring out your fitness routine. Like, I would work out for a workout wasn't a workout unless it was 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, and I was super sweaty. Like, the whole now doing a 30, 40-minute workout, that took me time to be okay with, without me being like, well, that's just a waste of time, because we're not really getting it in, because you would skate, lift, you know, train. So did you go through that?
I would say I wouldn't say I had issues with that personally. I could say with the training, yeah, it felt a little unorthodox that I can do this much more efficiently than I had in the past.
Yeah,
In fact, like I
exactly. Way
do,
more efficiently.
yeah, like I fully probably, I still, at least in my opinion, still train pretty damn hard. And that's why I made sure there was a gym attached to my office, and I'm very grateful and lucky to have that. And I think, yeah, I was like, how the heck did I spend 2 hours at the gym? Like, to be honest, it was a lot of resting, a lot of like, so was it as intense as I train now? I would say probably I train better now, more
Yeah,
efficiently than I
more
did. So
intentional.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, the intention part. So
Mhm.
today, where can people find you? How was your, you go back and you play. We went to the conversation with your parents, and then we kind of went down a different avenue, which is
Mhm.
amazing because this is how these things go. Because as
Yeah.
human beings, we've got many. Where were your parents at when you gave them that information? Because I think about, you actually made me think about my own parents when you go, we weren't the family with the fanciest cars, and we didn't have a cottage. But we had 3 in competitive sports, and
Wow.
I don't even know how they made it happen, personally, especially now when I look at the cost of, like, my 10-year-old season coming up. I'm like, "Really? They
Yeah.
budgeting for over, like, $6,300 for one child, a 10-year-old." I'm like, How did my" I know it's different inflation-wise,
Yep.
but what was that like for your parents? I'm curious to close that story off just to
Yeah. Yeah.
understand
No, I
where that
really
went up.
appreciate that. Thank you for coming back to that. Yeah. So we went for dinner, and you could just see their shoulders drop. Both
Aw.
parents. Of course, I think my mom was more outward about her opinions. My dad was excited for me and didn't maybe show that as much, the concern that he maybe had. But definitely both of them, their shoulders drop. Uh, I think they were excited too. Like, I wonder where this is going to go. Like, I wonder what you're going to do. Right? My mom laughs that I have a master's degree. Like, it's hilarious. I was never a conversation, never in the cards. I even toy with the idea. I've got enough things going on right now, but if I had the time and ability right now, I'd be like, would I do a PhD? Like, yeah, if I wasn't chasing 10 other things, I just, like, it's crazy. So I think the relief I saw in them at Jack Astor's on Fairway Road in Kitchener, I'll never forget it. It was like amazing. I loved seeing that. I knew my mom would be at more peace more often. Of course, she still worries about me too much, but better than it was. And yeah, so that was really cool. And then after that, the journey of the next chapter really began, and enjoyed the heck out of my last 15 games. Yeah, rest is history.
Yeah, the video online that I found is incredible, and I'll find it and post it when I post this interview. So those of you watching, you can watch it as well. It's like a really beautiful recap of your journey, and I couldn't imagine what you've had to navigate or go through. So, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share your story with all of us. Um, I know, like, there's so many parts to your story, and I'm sure this could be like a 3-hour conversation, like you say. Um, what are you most proud of?
Most proud of. I think a few things. It's funny. My personality and who I am is like, well, it's never enough, right? So this is an interesting, and I know a lot of people like that, and I'm sure you do as well. Like, never enough. Keep going. Can be always be faster, better,
Yeah.
etc. So it's actually probably a really healthy question for me to try and answer. I would
But I
say
can't.
yeah, I would say as of late, I think it's been the relationships. And I was just talking about this the other night with my wife, and it's like the relationships I've been lucky enough to have with these clients. Like, I laugh that I get to do this for a living. It's and then I'm in a different locker room or team event or virtual workshop, every 3 or 4 days. Like, people say, if you could go back, would you play again? Would you, that kind of question. And I think
No.
I don't want to, I do kind of want to circle it back to heroism. It's like, go on the journey to become that version of yourself that even maybe a small part of you, because usually it's the quietest voice in our mind, the smallest voice that says, like, you can be something like greater. And I think following that and then being able to take a step back and not only subjectively with my own bias, but objectively see the outcomes and impact that I'm lucky enough to have with clients now. I think that's something, maybe even for the first time, I've been like fully really proud of. And I know it's not all about pride and being proud, but that's probably it. Yeah, like it's even clients that I've had for over a year now, just the relationship we've built and the the therapeutic alliance that exists, that's just so cool, and checking in after competitions. And then I think the coolest part is that most of my athlete clients, not that I only work with athletes, we talk sport one session, and then we talk their relationship and their parents and their other anxieties and other uncertainties in life.
Yeah.
Like that is the goal for me.
Yeah.
Looking at working with the whole picture and the entire human in these conversations. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but I
No,
think
that's okay.
that's what
You're-
I'm most proud of. Yeah.
That's okay. And what piece of advice would you give your younger self, looking back at the journey that you've been on to date? And I get it. All these experiences have led you to this amazing place, and we had no regrets and all those things. And I totally get it. But if you had your younger self standing in front of you, and, and I get it again, all those uncertainties and adversities help us become the person we are. Would there be a piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self that
I
maybe
like it. I like it. So you're not looking for the cliches. Give myself advice.
like sometimes I think about I think about times when we sit in that emotional headspace where we're just in a thought now can come and be fleeting, but could hijack a month of my life when I was younger, right? Or like
Right.
I've been able to figure that out on my own through different works as well. But so I'm thinking kind of in that standpoint where you're looking at your younger self, was there something that you kind of kept repeating and it took you a while to learn, or um just out of curiosity along your journey?
Um, you know what? What was it the other day that I want to make sure I get this right, and also ensure it's not a cliche. And there was something, uh, I'm on the spot here. You're putting me on the spot, and I like it.
Making you think.
Yeah, in a really good way. I think
Yeah.
what I could tell my younger self in regards to how I behave today, I think I would go probably the most profound observation, no different than where I briefly touched on it in regards to our approach to high performance, is that the narratives everywhere are just so counterproductive. Like, no, like, and I'll come back to the term effortless intention. Like, I think I was a person that grinded and just believed all the sayings of harder, better, faster, like, no days off, et cetera, et cetera. And uh, I think you don't have to go too far to even see some individuals that the entire world looks up to from a sporting space. And if we peeled back the layers and looked into their life or looked into their mind, would you really want to trade places with them? And I think it would, if we really knew what was going on, I think some people would say, I don't know. I don't know if I want to, live in that space, in that headspace. And I think what I've learned through my work with clients, through my experiences in sport, that I wish I told my younger self was, you don't have to do everything with so much vigor and force. And then I was very lucky through a friend to meet Roger Federer. And I know that's probably a name like no one was expecting in this conversation, but there was an event, like he's world class athlete, but I would also now argue from the experience I had, a world class individual. We were just a small story to me, so important. I was there with a bunch of professional hockey players and other professional athletes. Don't ask how I got to this event, but like I was the smallest one on the totem pole in regards to sports value. And everyone was taking turns taking pictures with them, one-on-one photos.
Yeah.
And then I went up and he shook my hand and I went to put my arm around him to take the photo. And he said, whoa, 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 tell me about yourself. He was like,
Oh,
who are you? What do you do? Like, what do you? And it was just like the connection, the feet on the ground, the big picture, you could just tell that it was like he's got this approach to life where he's just, and I don't want to jump into the Eastern philosophical concepts, but like just in harmony, like he's not forcing, he's not desperate, he's not wearing a mask, he's not, and it's like you can still move towards your goals without that approach, even though
yeah,
so many highlight videos and motivational videos and Hollywood movies tell you otherwise. It's like, no, there's another way you can do this. And I think
yeah.
you don't miss out on the other aspects and textures of life, tunnel vision, hyper focus, obsession towards our goals. I think there's other ways you can do it. And I know that's hard for people to.
No, I mean, I experienced it firsthand after breast cancer because for 40 years, I muscled my way through life. If I needed something, I would marathons, triathlons, fitness show,
Yep.
da da da. I lost 30 pounds, won first place because that's how I constantly knew how to seek validation. I was addicted to it. And I was addicted to the person I was in that identity piece. And then after breast cancer, I got into walking and meditation, and I talk about this in my TEDx talk about life after sports. I was like, you can still what did I say? What's the line I used? It's something not at the expense of yourself. Like I can still be wildly successful, but not at the expense of myself. And I really leaned into this less was more and more intention, less calendar being full, more no's, so that I could say yes to me. And, just so much awareness around where I was just like squeezing a square peg in a round hole. But
Mm-hmm.
because I achieved success that way, eventually that square peg would get somehow into the round hole, but it'd be messy and it would be choppy and I'd be all over the place and it'd be emotional highs and lows. And then I learned how to meditate and walk and calm my big energy down and ground myself in pink Himalayan salt in the bathtub,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like really tap into that part of my source of energy. And it's like everything changed for me.
And
Everything.
it's a tough, I commend you on your efforts and transformation there and self-discovery, because I think it is really difficult because all the signs today are not saying that. Are, just keep going, just get another degree, just make 10,000 more, make 100,000 more. And then our assumption is that the way to get that is to grind and do more and put more time in.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I wish I would have, stopped to smell the roses, as they say,
Well,
more often,
and
and still with the belief that you can still move towards your goal in a more efficient and effective manner, with more energy, with more patience, with all these other uh,
exactly.
attributes and characteristics that will just make you better along the way. So that was, I would say, if I could go back, and I think that the ride could have, it was already unbelievable, my journey so far in life, but I think it could have been that much more electric, as the young kids are saying today. So, yeah,
Electric. I know. Well, it's funny to go back to your saying things before we land the plane in this conversation, because I know we could chat forever. My tagline is keep showing up and life's currency is showing up. But when I define it, when I do my public speaking is that could mean saying no so that you can sit in silence, so that you can, you know, touch grass. And Mark Mathot said that in our interviews, like you got to touch grass sometimes, but to do
I
those
love it.
grounding things and be quiet with yourself, right? And if you can't show up for yourself, you can't show up like in the way that you really want to, in that effortless ease. Or what was your
Effort, effortless intention.
yeah, effortless intention. But there is a different feeling, and I'm sure you felt that state of flow where you don't have to muscle your way through. And for any athletes watching, I think we've been just taught faster, harder, stronger, longer,
Mm-hmm.
endurance, endurance, endurance. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're praised for that type of mindset. And I'm grateful for all the training that I did, but I love that effortless
Yeah,
intention. It's beautiful. And a lot of more athletes need to hear it.
I agree. That's what I, try to push out into, the narratives and dialogues I have with my clients. Um, yeah, yeah, no, I mean, this is a perfect example today, us meeting. The old me would have squeezed in our first booking for this recording I would have been buzzing around, doing 1,000 things, would have squeezed this in, jumped down, probably wouldn't have showered, wouldn't have been
Same here.
wouldn't have had a clear mind, which then this wouldn't have been better, or sorry, this wouldn't have been as good as I hope it is now. So then
It's true.
think of the butterfly effect of that. Okay, so now you share this and the impact may not be as great. And so then I put the time into this and the outcome's not as great because I thought I would share that because now we're here, we're
Yeah.
present, you've got a million things going on, but we managed
It's
to
so
find the
true.
time and prioritize it and be more efficient. So tough. Hey, I'm a work in progress too. I got to catch myself at times for sure. Full honesty.
No,
But
I love that. And I think it's also removing that pressure that we put on ourselves and society and being okay with like, no, this is what I need right now, right? So I love it. I mean, there's so many amazing nuggets in your transformation and your journey, and I'm so glad that you're healthy and what an incredible journey to have the injury you had and return back, and let alone to end up where you've ended up with your everything that you've achieved. So we need more light workers like you in the world, spreading, all these amazing things. So thank you for what you do. And I'm so glad that we were able to have you contribute to the series. So episode again, guys, episode 61 of transitioning to
wow.
life after sports. Yeah, we've had an amazing lineup of athletes. I'm so excited that now we have Ben Fanelli in the lineup and dispensing out his knowledge. Any last words before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I mean, if someone is listening and they're not in the headspace they want to be in, an incredible framework, you can look for this anywhere online. I think something really applicable is, and I think gaining popularity is acceptance and commitment. I think it's a really powerful framework to step into. It's not accepting where you are and being okay with where you are and then not doing anything about it. It's no recognizing, getting as close to reality as you can with, you know what, I'm not where I want to be. Okay, that doesn't mean I have to stay here and be okay with it. It's okay, I need to know where I actually am so I can effectively move towards where I want to go. And then the next process becomes committing to that where you want to go. And as we know, feelings drive behavior, not thinking. We can think, yeah, I need to go exercise. I need to go clean the dishes. Well, the feeling is what's going to end up dictating whether you actually do that or not. And a way to influence that feeling is to actually maybe pick up that left leg or that right leg when it doesn't feel like moving and getting that feedback. So that's where I'll conclude. And if individuals want to learn more about that, again, it's ACT. You can find a lot of information about it online.
Do you just
That's all I've
Google
got.
ACT, or is there a
There
site,
will
or is
be endless, yes, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy is the acronym. I just thought something applicable, not necessarily my personal message, but I think it's a powerful framework. So
awesome? And where can people find you?
you can type in my name on most social media platforms or Heroic Minds, and you can find the Heroic Minds platform, which is continuing to grow quite quickly. So I would encourage you to jump on that. And if you want to reach out, again, social media or info@heroicminds.live, and be happy to answer any questions someone might have.
I love it. Well, you heard it from him directly. Episode 61, transitioning to life after sports with Ben Finelli. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. This was